Welcome back, everybody, to the No Starving Artist podcast. If you're watching this episode, you've probably watched a couple of episodes because we're on a little bit of a hot streak here. Will it continue? The world may never know. But it doesn't matter. We're here now, okay? NSADance.com. That's where you can find out everything there is to know about No Starving Artists. Chances are there's some clothing for sale on there right now. Dance critiques, mentorship, and past episodes of the podcast can all be found at NSADance.com. But without further ado, we're going to jump into today's episode. We've got a returning guest on the podcast, a friend of the podcast, some might say, and we're going to be, chopping it up and chatting about a few different topics today that I think are going to be really interesting for all you dancers out there. So let's get into the episode. Clara, welcome back to the No Starving Artist podcast. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me back.
You're welcome.
It's been a while.
For being back. It has been a little while, yeah. Tell everybody, kind of who you are and what you do.
So my name is Clara. If you don't already know me, I am also in the dance educator space. I do kind of similar things to Jason in terms of I also do some critiques. I do some private lessons. I also am very proud of my baby, my workshop, Vertex Vibe. So kind of that entrepreneur style in that dance industry.
Love it. Last time we, if you haven't watched the previous episode with Clara, be sure to go check that out. But last time we really kind of chatted about like who you are, your beginnings, where you came from. And it's great now because we can kind of, expand on all of that and also get into some new topics. Prior to the episodes, just a little BTS for everybody listening is I always ask people kind of what anything they want to talk about. And Clara brought up some really good things that to chat about today. One of which you mentioned is something we both like to talk about, which is true, which is just like the business of dance and just kind of like the entrepreneurial side of dance. I love the artistry of dance, but I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. I love the artistry and like that artist mentality of dance, but it also is the component that drives me the craziest because I feel like it's so unpredictable and so like I think something's cool and then it's like not received well. And then I'm like immediately like, okay, well, I guess I'm just terrible. And I thought I was good, but I'm not. And so I feel like that's why I like the business side of it because it's so much more predictable and so much more like, I know if something is working because there's like feedback in real time that's like measurable. But I don't know. What's your take on like the entrepreneur side versus the artist side and how do you sort of balance that?
Yeah, I think that's quite tough because we do come from that, artist-free, creative, but I also feel like I am more type A, like business oriented. Like I do like the schedule, I do like the plan, which is why like when I ended up pursuing dance professionally as a career for quite a long time, I didn't really love the unpredictability of it. That's why I probably ended up on a cruise ship because I liked the predictability of, I know I'm taking home this X amount of dollars. I know that I can say, this much is for spending, this much is for saving, and the rest is like what I'm going to invest in my business when I leave here. So I kind of always like had that mentality, even when I was like in my performance career, which I feel like a lot of artists maybe aren't even thinking about. But I do also like the predictability of the business side. And I don't know, I think that's something that I thrive in. Like I love the like professionalism. I love the emails. Which sounds like so weird to like so many people. They're like, ew, why? I don't know why. I just like love communicating with people. I love the organization of things. I love to make people feel like they can predict what they're expecting from me as an artist. So I think that's where like the worlds kind of collide in a sense is like, yes, I can be an artist and show my creativity or my choreography or whatever it is, but then whoever's on the receiving end of that, like they also can get the business side of it where it's like, I want the predictability as a client as well. And I think that's where I like to find that balance. And I think that's what clients appreciate as well. It's like having that balance, which is sometimes tough to find.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always joke that like I think part of the reason why I was able to be successful as a teacher before this was before like social media, like when I was just teaching around Utah and just, doing the thing. I feel like one of the reasons I was so successful with it is because I was able to answer text messages in a decently timely manner, and I showed up on time when I said I would. And I always kind of joke that like the bar is really quite low because a lot of artists struggle with just those two things, like responding to people and showing up on time. And in a studio setting, any type of business setting, those two things are really important. Like if you're not communicating with your boss, it's not going to go very well for very long.
Yeah, and I think it's important just to like realize that I think earlier than you need to and
Yeah.
like start implementing that and even just in the communication, like even if you're not like a business owner and you're like communicating and that's how you're making your money, right?
Hmm.
Especially freelance like we do. Even like as a dancer, I think it's important to like know that you need those skills if you want to, for example, open a studio one day or even like freelance. Like I don't think that artists realize when they kind of transition out of that, whatever their pathway was like school or full-time performance or
Hmm.
whatever it is, that like you are an entrepreneur whether you like it or not, I think, in a
Yeah.
sense. Like you are your own business. And I kind of wish that I knew that or was taught that in school, even because I went to school for dance. So, like, I think that's where like that gap is like we never teach artists to also be business people so that when
Yeah.
they do transition into those roles of like owning a studio and having all of these like admin things and teams and things that you need to manage, it's like really, really tough. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I think
sure.
even communicating and like having that knowledge early on, I think will would help so so much.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. There's really no sort of like in our art space, there isn't a lot of guidance from a business standpoint whatsoever.
Hmm.
I mean, even obviously it's different in Canada than it is in the States with certain factors of just life. But here a lot of times I'll talk to people and they're like, and I didn't even know. Like I always thought we have like health insurance agents here in the States. We have agents for everything. Like you can have a car insurance agent. You can have And I always just assumed like, oh, that's like that's a rich person thing. Like I can't afford that. And then when I realized that like here in the States you don't actually pay your health insurance agent. They just get a cut from the company
Hmm.
that they end up providing you insurance through. And so then I realized that I'm like, wait, you're telling me I don't have to do anything. I just tell this person what I want, and then they do it for me, and then that's it. Like, but a lot of people don't even know how to do. They don't even know that that's available to them. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's similar situations in Canada as well, where it's like, there's resources out there for small businesses and smaller entrepreneurs. But if you're not even aware of them, sometimes you're just stuck and you're like, it doesn't feel possible because of all these other
Hmm.
factors outside of whatever it is that you're actually trying to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting to hear that perspective because, of course, like that's not something that I deal with on an everyday basis. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's that missing gap of like knowledge, like what's available to us as artists. Like, I don't even think I'm as educated as I could be in that area because who's educating on that? You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
most of the business knowledge that I have, like, I'm learning from like Alex Ramosi, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all these like big time like business people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
But not necessarily like a dance business. I don't even know if that exists really.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard because I think it's like, yeah, I don't know. And I think that's where like mentors can come into play really heavily. But again, it's sometimes really difficult to even find or attract the right mentors when you're starting out as a dancer or as a teacher. And so if that doesn't kind of happen to fall in your pathway, that can be really tricky as well. Because a lot of the things that I am knowledgeable on from the business side of things were from people that I was just lucky enough to hold space with that
Mhm.
were really knowledgeable in particular areas. And I think for a lot of artists, they don't necessarily ever cross paths with people like that. And so then they're just kind of in this space where like their artistry, that checks out. That's good to go. But then making it to where it's there's longevity is much trickier.
Hmm. And I think it's also like tough because sometimes when you're like, oh, like I just want to dance, like I want these opportunities, and then I think a lot of dancers face like, well, I'm not booking the things that I want, and I'm not getting those opportunities
Yeah.
that I want. So how do I fuel this artistry while also making a living doing it? And
Yeah.
I mean, being a business owner isn't just like, oh yeah, let's do it, like it's easy. I'm sure that you know that firsthand.
Hmm.
There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, right? But it's like knowing that, you have this artist path, but you don't need to rely on somebody to give you the job all the time. If you have
Yeah.
that like entrepreneurial side as well, you're like, oh, well, I can create that opportunity for myself, which is, I think, what I learned. And if
Mm.
you listen to what I was talking about on the last podcast, that was a completely different area of my life. I think that was like 2 years ago. I was teaching full time in a
Yeah, that's
studio.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
And now I've like totally, completely changed out of that. And I think the fear in that transition was like,
I
how am
honestly, I feel
I?
like, not to interrupt you, but I think we
No, go for
actually,
it.
I think we talked about that you were unsure about navigating this space of like leaving studio.
Yeah, yeah, probably touch on that a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think like now I'm completely fully out of a studio space, not because it's not incredible, but because I just realized like that doesn't suit, like that doesn't fit me. And I
Yeah.
think that's okay. And I think it's like that transition of like, you know what, I'm not scared anymore to do that freelance work. I think there's like that fear of like, oh, like you said earlier, like we don't have the stability of what we had,
Yeah.
or we don't have that set schedule, which entrepreneurial side kind of does give.
Yeah.
And it does give you that opportunity to create what you want, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like, ooh, I want to create, like a workshop, which is what my dream has always been. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do that, and I'm able to, make connections that way through people I hire or things like that. Like I think that's a great way to, still be in your artistry. And I teach for my own workshop, of course. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I'm giving myself a job. Maybe I'm not getting paid as much as I would if I was going elsewhere because
No,
you
but
have
the
to
hope is that one day
sacrifice.
it like builds to more than that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I think it's cool that like as artists, like if you're willing to go and make those sacrifices as a business owner, like you can create the opportunities that you're wishing and hoping for as an artist.
100%. One thing I'm curious about. So I feel like I have this sort of like, and I don't even know if it's an amount, but I feel like I have this sort of like um, threshold in my head of like, okay, here's like a safe amount of money that I would like to make per month, reoccurring. I guess is like sometimes those businessy words are not my favorite, but like let's use reoccurring, consistent, and then I kind of build my services or like offerings around that. So I'm like, okay, I want to get to X amount. What could I do within my skill set, or what could I offer to get to that point? I'm
Hmm.
curious if you have kind of a similar thought process around like, I guess what I'm kind of pushing into is like how you actually build out what you're going to offer or what you're going to, essentially sell to people. How do you sort of decide what, when, where, and how?
I feel like this is the area where I lack a little bit because I'm so like heart led, and that's where like I wish I was more businessy in that sense.
Mm.
Because in my head, I'm like, I want to give the community what I know that they want. I think that's where it comes
Okay.
from for me, is I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, a lot of people are asking me for this specific thing. So
Mm.
of course there's a demand for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like, of course, like my heart wants to help them achieve whatever they want to achieve,
Yeah.
right? So
100%.
I think that's kind of where I come into it is like, ooh, I see the demand from like maybe what's coming in my DMs, maybe the content that's doing better, which sometimes
Mm.
gets a little risky because, social media can be all over the place. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I sometimes attach too much of my care to that, honestly. But I think you can see, like, when something is reoccurring, like something that you're talking about. For me, it's been the most recent thing has been pirouettes. Like, it sounds so random. And to
Mm.
me, I'm like, oh, really? Like, I am really passionate about, being a good person and allowing that to transition into your dancing and more the
Yeah.
mental and the mindset, which like doesn't really do well some of the time.
Yeah.
But what's doing well is like, oh, how can I achieve a pirouette and
Yeah.
make it consistent? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, really? That's what you guys want? And it's consistently doing extremely well. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Clearly people want this. It
There's
might,
something
and
there.
and my heart is like, okay, I want to fulfill that for people.
Yeah.
So even if it's like not, the top of my business list to do in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what I want, I think that's something that I learned as a business owner is like, I can't do what I want. I need to do what everyone's reacting to
Hmm.
because that is what they want. And those
Hmm.
are your clients and that is your market. So as long as I'm passionate about it, which
Yeah.
I am, then I'm going to go for it and I'm going to like act on that. So I think that's my long answer in how I,
That's interesting.
kind
Yeah.
of determine what I
Mm-hmm.
put my energy into
Mm-hmm.
because there is that sense of demand, especially for us. We're blessed to like, have that following and have that community, which I think is a blessing.
Yeah.
As much as it's stressful at times, I think that we can get that real time feedback of what people are wanting, not just in our own country, but all around the world, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is like incredible. Because then
Yeah.
if I'm like, ooh, pirouette, okay, what kind of course? Like I'm currently building a course for them. How can I get that course all around the world? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And then
Mm-hmm.
that is going to, make my market bigger, which hopefully is going to give me a bigger return in the long run if we're talking business,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of how I strategize that. But then I also have things that I'm like, I'm going to do this no matter what because I'm passionate and I love it, which is where the other side of that comes in, which is
Yeah.
probably my workshop, which is things like that, where it's like, this is something that I personally love. And I know that I'm going to give 110% and it's going to be received well if I love what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's really interesting,
So,
and I think that
uh,
that's super valid. That idea of sort of like using your audience as like a to kind of point you in the direction of like what is working and what's not working. Because yeah, I mean you do have that access to those people almost immediately, right? So being able to post something and see kind of what the response is, I think is a really great way of kind of testing like, okay, there's something here or there's something not here.
mhm.
How like I always forget what the word is. Like risk averse versus risk inadverse. How risky are you? How willing are you to like take risk when it comes to, you know, business ideas or even current businesses that you have? Is that something you ever kind of like battle with in business?
Yeah, I think I am not like crazy risky where I'm just gonna like throw all this money in and like have no plan or no return. Well, I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's not really businessy because you'd need a business plan for that. But I wouldn't say I'm like crazy risk level 100, but
Yeah.
I would say I do take quite a bit of risks in, for example, the things that I'm passionate about, like for example, Vertex 5, my workshop that I keep bringing up. But
Yeah.
that's I think something that's very risky in a sense because I'm not doing a convention of 300 people. So I don't have the budget to, charge per head and make on the masses. I'm kind of taking a risk and saying, you know what, I only want 30 kids in a room, which of course changes the cost and changes the amount that I can profit on that
Yeah.
because the market obviously does compare to things that are already existing that are already common knowledge of like, oh, a convention, I go
Mm,
in a room of like 500 kids and I get packed in there and I do a full
yeah.
day of dance. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm so set on like taking the risk and going and being like, I want to stick to 30 people in the room. I think there's such a different receiving of information when you can actually be face to face with someone, like speak their name,
Yeah.
really think about, ask them like, what are your goals at the end of this? I think it's a totally, completely different experience that as dancers, I don't think we're really used to in that space.
A hundred
So I
percent.
think that's where I'm taking a risk in the sense of financial risk in terms of I can't make on the 500 kids that come,
Yeah.
but also on the approach of what I'm teaching. So it's not just like, okay, I don't just want because you've been a guest at one of our locations,
Yep.
actually our first ever guest.
Yep.
And I think you could probably feel the energy in the room was a little bit different because, people, I hope, feel valued in that space and they feel
A
like
hundred
they can
percent.
say, hey, Jason, like, what do you think about this? Or like I even remember watching clips back of you and you're being able to say their name, so it just
Mm-hmm.
like hits different.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we're not used to. So there's that risk of people not understanding what I'm offering. And then the price being like, oh, well, why is this higher? Because I am making it more personal. So it's just like
Yeah.
that comparison. And that's the risk that I need to take to hopefully get that audience that's my audience. It's not going to be everyone. And I think that's something that's important that I've learned in business is like I cannot be wanting everyone to love my idea and love what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just need to focus on those who really appreciate that difference and that risk that I'm willing to take and hope that it pays off.
Yeah. And I think honestly that's where I've two thoughts. One is I think that's where that artist side kicks in for a lot of us is like because I have friends that are very much on the business side of things and they don't really it feels at least like they have no inclination of like, oh, is everybody gonna love this? Like they don't even care. They're just like, I'm just gonna make this and then do it and then whatever. Whereas I think on our side, our artist sort of kicks in and goes, wait, but are people gonna like it? Like, are they gonna like me for it instead of just doing it? And I think
Yeah.
the second thing is, yeah, when you're creating something that is new or a new spin on something existing, yeah, you're up against not only the battle of like all of the normal stuff, but then also educating people on what that new thing is and why it's important to them. Because yeah, I've definitely ran into that before where it's like I know what it is and I know why it's valuable, but the people receiving it may not understand, why is this, $500 when this thing over here that looks the same is $200. But it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but hang on. So it's like, it's hard for sure. So that makes sense. And that makes sense too. Like I think taking a risk on your something you're really passionate about is always going to be probably a little bit better than taking a risk on something that you maybe don't care as much about. So I think that's
Hmm.
fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah. So I do take a risk in a sense, but not too much. I'm not. I would say my husband's a little bit more of the risk takers, but not so
Yeah.
much me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my wife would disagree with me, but I definitely sometimes just like throw money at things and I'm like, it'll probably work. We'll see.
But I think it's good because I
It
feel
does
like you're an
sometimes.
action taker. I feel like that's a thing in
Oh,
business
I
as
don't. Yeah, I
well.
don't hesitate. Yeah,
You just need to like
yeah,
go for it. And I think that's where I hesitate a lot of the time is I care too much about everyone. I'm like, I just want everyone to love it and I want everyone
yeah,
to feel welcome and that it resonates with everyone. And that's like exactly my point of what I've been learning is like
yeah,
not everyone is gonna love it and it's really okay. The
yeah, for
right
sure.
people will come and the right people will see the value. And that's the people that you want around, right? Like,
Hundred
you don't want to
percent.
be
Yeah,
convincing people. You can share and you can educate, like you said. And I
yeah,
think we both have, the tools, luckily, the video skills and the things to, share and promote that. I think that's a huge part of
yeah,
being an artist these days, which is like tough. I think that's another thing with artists. It's hard because I think a lot of artists, like, we don't want to be too much on social media. We don't want to be, I don't know,
yeah,
too out there, but we
yeah,
kind of have to now. We
yeah,
kind of have to now.
yeah. That's probably. I think that's the biggest battle that I've had recently. Is
Hmm.
and it's I'm actually kind of like right at a pivot point right now where I'm actually I just watched this great video by a guy named Matt Diavella. I don't know if you've ever watched any of his stuff.
Oh, yes,
So
I
great,
watched
right?
the video. I watched the video about
Yeah,
the social media.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I watched
And then
it.
and he just posted a recent one about like I forget what the actual terminology is, but it's like basically like the like anti hustle culture.
Yep, watched it
And he
too.
was he was kind of like detailing how he took a step away and like if you haven't seen the video go watch it, but he took a step away from what he was doing, simplified a lot of what he was doing, and it ended up working out much better. And something about it was like I was like I think this might be the issue because for the past few months I've just been feeling like I'm just like kind of banging my head against the wall of like the same, like Groundhog's Day almost, where I'm like I'm not making the same content, but it feels like I'm making the same content. It feels like I'm making
Mm,
the same video over and over again. And so I'm kind of right at this pivot point where I'm attempting to lean much more into like quality over quantity, which is very new to me. Not something that I
mm.
ever sort of had the
I
mindset of
see what you're
before.
saying.
But I'm like excited about it. And I'm like, I'm also, I think it's like, I think we're almost to a point where it's so saturated now. And I'm
Mm.
sure, as you have seen, when we both first started doing this, there was not really a lot of us out there doing it. Now,
Hmm.
and it doesn't upset me. I think it's great. But now everybody's filming their classes, and not like class footage, but like everyone's filming themselves teaching
Yes.
and giving speeches and like. And I've been in rooms with people while they're doing it where it's very curated and it's kind of like, okay, we're getting into some muddy water here that I don't necessarily want to be a part of
I
anymore. And so I'm like,
see.
how do I sort of like navigate, attempting to be a step ahead, but in a way that feels genuine to me and in a way that feels
Hmm.
like inspiring to me. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it's interesting. And you've kind of mentioned a couple times about like the pitfalls of social media, which I'm curious about. What has that been like recently for you? What have been sort of like the top three negatives of social media for you in the past like
Ooh.
3 months?
Okay. Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so first of all, I just want to go back a second and just
Mm-hmm.
say I feel like you've done things like the right way in so many ways,
Thank you so
and
much.
you're a huge inspiration to what like I remember like 2 years ago when you asked me to be on the podcast, I was like starstruck and I was like, wait, Jason wants me to be on the podcast, and now we're friends, so we're chill. But
Yeah,
like
it's
back
great.
in the
Yeah.
day, I was like, wait, what? Like I'm not good enough for this. What the heck? And I just remember being like so starstruck. I was like, I have a podcast with Jason. I know I feel like we're just hanging out. But anyway, so I think you did it such in the right way because I think you need that quantity at first, to build that reputation, to build
Yeah.
that credibility, to
Yeah.
get people to hear your message. And I think that's something that I talk about as well with my husband because he is a videographer, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in the previous podcast, and helps me a lot with more professional content, I would say.
Yeah.
And, like we also did that, professional quality stuff. And
Yep.
whenever we put so much effort into it, we find sometimes that like it doesn't do as well.
No.
So he's kind of like, oh, we need to go for the quantity. And I think that
Yeah.
you've done that very, very well. And I think it also gives your audience a sense, which is where I'm struggling right now. It gives them a sense of, this is Jason as a person. And when you meet you in person, I feel like it's the exact same
Mm.
way.
Thank
And
you
I
so
think
much.
people can see, your personality because you were not focusing so much on quality and you were focusing on getting the content out. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if anyone's looking to like start on social media, my personal opinion is like get the quantity out. And that's something
Yeah.
that I need to work on myself. I don't know if this is because I am also female, but sometimes I'm like, well, I can't film that video because like my hair is all over the place. Like I don't have makeup on. Like I look like I just rolled out of bed,
Meanwhile, I
which
feel like I look strung out in half the
no,
videos.
but you're like, I feel like, I don't know. Like
It's like
I
late
feel
at night.
like
I'm like off
it's,
like 3 coffees. I'm like,
no, I feel like, but that's like, I think where I'm struggling personally with social
yeah.
media is I want people to know that I'm a human being,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't want to come off as unprofessional
Yes.
because of
Yeah.
the roles that we play,
Yeah.
especially as an adjudicator, as
Yep.
like a respected educator. I find that fine line hard to be like, I'm not like an influencer that's like, doing my like showing my outfits of the day,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like and showing like my personal life and my struggles. But then at the same time, like that's the content that I like to watch in a sense. Like I kind of like
For
that
sure.
like
For sure.
rawness. So I'm
100%.
like,
Yeah.
how do I integrate that as somebody who is seen, as a professional, as an educator in the space, but also balance that with being human and, not like my content that's me teaching nowadays that I used to do that was
Mm-hmm.
like popping off before. It's not really popping off anymore. I don't know if
Yep.
it's
Same.
because people are used to it.
Yep. Yep.
If they just heard what I said too much in a different way, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also think there's a value. My husband always says this to me as well, is like that people want to hear the same things from us in
Yeah.
a sense. Like they need the reminder
Yeah.
of like, this is what we're rooted in. That's why they came to our platform in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we're saying it in a different way, it's fine. Like
Yeah.
people want the reminder of like, you need to do this or you don't need to do this. Because the first time it probably went right over their head.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Second time, maybe. I think they said what? It's like 7 times you hear something before it actually
Before it clicks. Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great, great perspective. And I think that, like, I'm also sort of really in this space right now of like, how do I cultivate like community? Like, I've always been obsessed with people that create really strong community. Like, it's like a
Hmm.
weird obsession of mine. Like, I'm a really big John Bellion fan, and part of the reason why I'm a big fan of him and his music is because of how really just so mind-blowingly good he is at cultivating community. And I
Hmm.
remember, I want to say it was, man, I want to say the artist was Lupe Fiasco, but I don't know if that's correct. But I remember watching an interview with this artist, and I don't think that's who it was. Ryan Leslie, that's who it is. Ryan Leslie, older like sort of R&B music. And I remember watching a interview with him very, very early, like long, long time ago. And he had started a company, but this was before it was sort of like big. What he did was he realized that selling out these like big arenas, he wasn't really making that much money. So he was like, okay, how do I simplify this and create more experiences where I can actually start profiting a lot? And so what he did was
Hmm.
he bought a second phone, because this was like early internet days. He buys a second phone
Hmm.
and he goes, "Here's my personal number. Text me and you can join this club and we're all going to chat together. We're all going to communicate, da da da." And then he started sending out these texts. He would go, "This Saturday in New York City, I'm holding a private event. There's 100 tickets available, and tickets are $350 a piece." Instantly sold out.
Hmm.
And so then he ends up building a company, which turns into this much bigger SMS marketing company that he was an original owner of. And I remember hearing that story, and I was like, man, that's such the opposite of what we sometimes think about as an artist. We're like, more, more, more. I need more people. I need more
Hmm.
eyes. But it's like, how do I get a smaller group of people to be really, really invested to where anything I do, they're like, yes, I want that or I need that. And so I'm
Hmm.
really sort of trying to figure out now how to cultivate that and like curate that
Hmm.
in the most genuine way possible, because I also feel like as a human I crave that connection. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's part of what I'm struggling with social is like the bigger it gets, the almost less connected you feel, because it's so
Mm.
widespread that now it's like I feel like I'm just kind of talking to a huge group as opposed to talking to like one person face to face.
Mm.
Um, and it's hard because it's like, yeah, how do you balance all the things, right?
Yeah.
Also while trying to maintain growth that you've already had. So it's like, I don't know, it's a little bit of a rant there, but I don't know, it's tricky. I feel like just navigating everything.
Yeah, and I think I don't know about you, but sometimes the numbers like get in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I lost like I don't know, like point whatever followers or
100%.
whatever, and I'm like,
100%.
why do I care about that?
Yeah.
Like you said, if I have the 100, even 100 people
Yeah.
that are like, die hard, they're gonna come to every single one of my events, they're gonna show up on every single call, like why am I caring about the 30K or whatever you
Yeah.
have? You know what I
100%.
mean?
100%.
So I don't know. I find it hard to disassociate with that number, which
Yeah.
is, frustrating sometimes because at times like that is our face of our job. Like that's our storefront
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
sense. And I need to be active. And I think that's also what I'm struggling with on social media is feeling like kind of what you're doing, like posting more. Like I need
Yeah.
to post more. I need to be more relevant. I need to more, 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 more.
Yeah.
And me personally, I'm like, I don't even know how you do it. Like I think about that all the time. I'm like,
How
well,
I post
Jason
so
can
much?
do it. Like, let's go, Clara. Like, go for it. Like, why can't you do it? Like, he has like two kids. Like, why are you? I don't even have an excuse. But in my head, I'm like, there's no way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. Maybe you can share your secret.
100%. Can you give me 1 minute? I think my son is screaming for me. Hang on 1 second.
Yes, go for it. Bring him in.
Okay, I'm back.
Awesome.
He was taking a nap and then he woke up and I could just like hear him screaming through the
Oh
monitor, "Dad!"
no.
His door is open, so I don't know why he didn't just walk out, but it's okay.
Cute. Oh.
Okay. Yes. So I've gotten this a lot, honestly, of like people that are like, "How do you create content?" And we've talked about it too. And I think part of it is because I set myself up in the beginning of like, what's the easiest way to create
Mm.
content? You know what I mean? And I kind of modeled early stuff off of Gary Vee and sort of his style.
Mm. He's
And
crazy.
yeah, he's crazy. And definitely not someone that I like follow too much anymore just because like
Mm.
I don't know, it almost got too noisy. Like not in an actual sense of too like him being too noisy, but it was just like so much that
Mm.
it kind of like strung me out of his content. But I remember early on when I started consuming his content, he was like, I could tell that he was just literally having somebody follow him around with a camera and just film everything. And then he
Mm.
was clipping it up. And I was like, okay, well, I can't afford to do that. But I could just, put my phone on selfie mode and record myself whenever I
Mm.
want to and just ramble. Maybe people will be interested. So that's really, I feel like the reason why I can create so much is just because I'm half the time just rambling to my phone and I don't review it. I
Mm.
don't like edit it. I don't really do anything. Sometimes I'll retake if it's too long, like if I ramble too much,
Yeah.
but usually it's just like one off video, done. Then I post it immediately so that way I'm not thinking about it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the toughest thing for me. We were talking about social media and the struggles, and I think that's the hardest part. It's like I'll film something and then I'll be like, I need to delete that. That sounded weird, or like,
Yeah, or
and
like
then
I was talking
I
to somebody
start
the other
over.
day and they were like, "Oh, I just archive posts if they don't do well." And I was like, I've never even that's
But
never
maybe
crossed
they
my mind.
will. That's what happens sometimes, like sometimes nothing's like popping on it, and then all of a sudden, like it will just pick up, and it's
A
like
hundred
I don't know,
percent.
30K out of
A
nowhere, and
hundred
you're like,
percent.
wait, that was like a week ago or something.
Hundred
Like,
percent.
don't get it, but that's
Yeah.
how it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I
maybe
just
the
don't
archives,
even and you know what's funny too? And I think this is like speaking to if anybody is out there that like you're making content or you're trying to do the thing and you're like it's not working. Don't always you can't always just rely on the numbers. I think the
Hmm.
numbers are a really good indicator, but the amount of people that are like come up to me and like when I started making my higher quality air quotes videos where there was a little bit more like setup and cut shots and things like that. I had so many people that were like, "These are amazing. Like I love these videos." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Well, you didn't comment on it. You didn't share it. Like how am I supposed to know that?" And
Exactly.
but it also registers in my brain of like, "Okay, even if people aren't commenting or engaging, they're still seeing it." You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
What, baby? Give me 5 minutes, okay? Okay. Okay, I can help you in 5 minutes, okay? Okay, I love you.
So so sweet. But
You
yeah.
know what I mean, though?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what's hard about social media is the number on the post. Like
Yeah.
I think because we do take like I think there's great insights, and now you can see when you click on it, you're like, oh, this many shares, this many comments. Okay, like
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see like from an analytical business perspective,
It's
ooh,
a lot better now, yeah.
something that I've heard is like you said, you're always talking about the same things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you see like a post that's doing really well and you're like, oh, I can like talk about this in another way, is the advice
Yep.
that I have learned or been given is like, maybe to us, because we live this and we say it probably 1,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
like if we, maybe it's now filming that like selfie video that you took on this comment that, just took off and filming it in a higher quality setting.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that would also do well because the content. But then it never happens like that anyways. Like sometimes it could not. So there's really no like method to the madness. I think that's
No.
why going and doing quantity works in a sense
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of gives you that level field of like, oh, I can kind of go maybe more in this direction, more in this direction.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, for somebody that might be wanting to start out, they want to create content, they want to, and if we kind of narrow it down even further to like, I'm a dancer, I want to start creating content. The thing that I hear a lot is like, what do I do? What is usually your advice when it comes to something like that? How do I go about figuring out what I'm going to say or what I want to say or how I'm going to say it?
I honestly think it's great at the beginning, right? Because you can experiment a little bit more with less eyes on you. I don't know if you
Mm,
feel that, but
mm,
now at this point, I feel like it's harder creating content than it was when I had like 100 followers. So
a
I think it's
hundred percent.
actually great to just embrace the moment that you're in first and
Yeah.
foremost and like use that as a moment to explore what you want to post. I
Mm-hmm.
think the main thing as a dancer, if you're in that, professional dancer mode or competition dancer mode, like is to, film yourself dancing. Make it like I'm sure they've heard this a million times before, but make it like a portfolio for them because
Yeah.
I've heard so much more than not that now agents are looking at that than anything else, even if
Yeah.
they do
Yeah.
submit this formal thing. So making sure that for me personally, oh, it's the profile photo for the younger dancers. Like make sure I can see your face. Like I know that we're not business people
Mm,
yet, but like even for me as a person, I'm like maybe I want to search for an assistant or I want to, like I want to say, oh, there was that girl in class that I like, like I want to
yeah.
be able to see their face staring at me
Yeah.
in their icon. I don't care if you're like 5 years old or if you're, it doesn't need to be like a very like professional photo,
Yeah.
maybe
That's a
not
great
five, maybe
tip.
like 10.
That's a
But
great
like
tip.
have your face in the profile photo so I can see if I'm an agent, a choreographer, whatever.
Yeah.
Then have your real name or the most simple what is it, handle that
Mm-hmm.
you possibly can, the more you make it like Clara, dancer, XO, exclamation point, like all these crazy
A
things. I
hundred
know
percent.
I was there when I was younger as well, but I wish
Yeah.
someone told me, don't do that, Clara. The more easy, like mine's just even my maiden name, Clara Eaton. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A
So
hundred
having it
percent.
something that's easy searchable, that's why I didn't change it because I know that people in the dance industry know me as Clara Eaton. So I'm not going to change it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that's important, a searchable name, having
Yeah.
your name clearly, having, like clear information in your bio. Like, even if you're younger, like, I think it's important to,
Yeah.
start that. And, you're not going to be on social media all the time as a young dancer, but when you do, post like videos of you dancing. Again, doesn't have to be high quality. It can be like you doing a combo in class. Like
Yeah.
I know a lot of younger dancers that also want to get into teaching and they assist. They have like assistant jobs.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah.
they're teaching the 5-year-olds. I always encourage like some of my mentees, like, post what you're doing. Like if you're creating like fun little cute, like, reward cards for them or doing activities with them or even like doing improv and like, making them play with the little scarves. I don't know. And you're like younger and you don't know what to post. Like, post that. Like,
Yeah.
just set up
Yeah.
the camera. Don't make it dramatic. I think that's what we
Don't
were
overthink it.
talking about.
Yeah.
Is like, we don't need this huge setup. Like, I try and make it, even when I'm filming my classes now, I think I mentioned this in the previous
Yeah.
podcast. Like,
Yeah.
I throw the camera in the back corner. I leave it recording for the full 2 hours. I don't touch it. And I try not to reference to it ever because I never want it to interrupt my class
Yeah.
or make people feel like they're on camera at all. I just want to like clip it after. And if I get some good stuff, cool. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's also great if you're a younger teacher as well, so that people can see, like, going to your page, they dance, they assist and they teach. Because I get a lot of
Yeah.
dancers being like, I don't know what to even put on my resume or things. So I think your social media can be that like resume, but it can also be like you just being a kid and dancing. I don't know. I think there's this
Yeah.
thing that's another topic. Oh my gosh, that in dance we think at age 10 we need to be like the 17-year-olds.
Mm.
And even in like photo shoots and things, you see so many young dancers like wearing like all of these like like
Yeah.
Calvin Klein underwear. Like, you know what I mean? Like, wait, what? Just like be yourself, be your age,
A hundred
be
percent.
a
Yeah.
kid, show yourself also going and like, I don't know, tumbling on the grass in the park or something with
Well, and
your
that's
friends.
relatable for other people as well. Like that's
Yeah.
relatable for the audience that you are going to attract and want to attract is what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so I think like the more you can like be yourself and post things that you would genuinely want to share, because let's say that takes off
Yeah.
and you're like 17 and like you had what you're doing take off and now you're like, I actually hate doing that. I just made that video because I thought I
Yeah.
would get views.
Yeah.
Then
But now
that's what you're
yeah.
known for and that's what
Then
you
that
need to
becomes your
keep
thing.
replicating.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
So if you can do what you're doing naturally, be yourself, like act like yourself as much as you can. I know sometimes I'm like, Clara, why are you talking so weird?
Yeah.
When I turn on the camera, I'm like, wait, just take a breath
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just like try and be yourself as much as possible because like honestly, that's gonna give you longevity. It's gonna make you feel more comfortable in posting because clearly you do that too.
Yeah.
Like you,
Yep.
it's easier for you to post because that's yourself. You don't have to put on any sort of energy.
A hundred
And
percent.
then that's what gets you that longevity in it. So that would be my long-winded advice,
I
but
think that's
be
a
yourself.
great piece of advice. Where if you're not already following Clara, make sure you go do that. But give listeners an idea of kind of where they can find you. One last plug of Vertex and sort of what you're doing right now at this moment.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me. It's just my first and last name, maiden name, Clara Eaton. And as for Vertex, I'm currently redoing the website, but when it's up, you'll be able to find it at vertex5.com. Nice and
Amazing.
easy. And yeah, just happy to be here. Thanks again for having me, Jason.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have you again on the podcast and such a great conversation and hopefully some really like valuable nuggets in there. And it's also nice to just kind of like have a chat back and forth. And I feel like it, from a listener perspective, it's a lot more, I don't know. I feel like sometimes we get a lot more accomplished that way than when it's like, we're trying to weed through all the other stuff. So yeah, hopefully if you're listening, you're inspired or even just thinking a little bit differently about your artistry and about your approach to it. So thank you again for being on the episode.
Yes, thank you for your time. And I think it's super comforting for us as artists to have these conversations, So
Mm,
even if you're listening and, you are feeling some type of way or you're struggling with something, I think it's so important to, make those connections that you feel safe in. And like,
yeah,
I know Jason and I always go back even on DMs, like, and we help each other out. And I think I just want to leave you guys with that as well, is that it's important to not feel like we're so competitive in this industry
yeah,
because we need to lean on each other for support and advice. And even just having this conversation today, Jason, was like healing for me in terms of how I feel on social media. So thank you for that, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely, absolutely.